Welcome all to the week 5 session of the PMGT1865 course. Today we will focus on resource planning as a critical component of project time, cost and resources course. Project resource planning ensures that the right resources such as the people, technology, materials and finances are all allocated effectively to complete the project successfully. This session is part of broader course on project time, cost and resources. Let's get into what are the techniques and what are the other policies or process within resource management. Okay, now you're looking at the schedule overview. In week one, we covered the project planning, project scheduling in week two, and we learned about work breakdown structure and the CPM, the critical path method. And week three, we did overlapping network. Week four, last week, we did the program evaluation and review technique. And this week, we'll look onto the resource planning. So what is the outcome of this session? We would hopefully, by the end of the lecture, our goal is to make sure that you should be able to understand or identify the different types of resources required in a project, learn various estimation techniques, mainly we focus on deterministic and probabilistic, and should be able to understand the organizational breakdown structure and the responsibility matrix. Okay, let's see what are project resources. Project resources are everything you need to execute a project activities. They include human resources, technology and equipment, materials and consumptions and financial resources. Some of these like materials are consumed and cannot be reused, whereas others like equipment and skilled labor are applied repeatedly across different tasks. Project resources are pretty much either tangible or intangible. They both can have different components, such as people, which you focus on the individuals and their expertise needed to perform a particular project tasks and activities. And you focus on technology. Technology is mostly like the software, hardware, and other technological assets that support the project execution. And the materials and consumables, which are your raw materials and other physical items used in the project, and equipment and funding. The funding is mostly the budget and financial funding you allocate to the project expenses. So that are required. These are all the key resources that which will be required for your project to make sure that you execute the project successfully from planning to delivery. Effectively identifying, acquiring, and managing these resources is a process known as project resource management. And at the end of the project resource management process, you come up with a project resource plan. And this is a crucial aspect for keeping a project on schedule, within budget, and achieving its objective. Okay, so let's see what resource management is. Resource management is the process of defining how to estimate, acquire, manage, and use team and physical resources. So the process involves planning and controlling the effective use of resources. This includes identifying what resources you need, when you need them, how you will acquire and allocate them throughout the project. You will also analyze critical resources such as your equipment, like the skilled labors, materials, as an important part of your planning and scheduling. It also includes monitoring resources usage to avoid shortage and over allocation. So the general input to the process of resource management for identifying and analyzing the resources, or your project charter, your scope baseline, and your project schedule is also involved, and other requirements that are required or needed for the project to complete successfully. There are various tools and techniques used, such as your organizational breakdown structure, expert judgment, responsibility assignment matrix, and so on. You, as a project manager, will be responsible for developing a resource management plan at the end of the process and monitor the progress as you keep moving. So that's the main thing about resource management. In what are the three steps involved in resource planning? Even a well-structured schedule can fail if resource availability is ignored, right? So, for example, you may schedule two tasks simultaneously that require the same specialist, which creates a bottleneck. So, how would we manage that? So, therefore, you need to have a resource feasibility must align with your timeline. Resource planning follows three main steps, as you see: step one, step two, and step three. The step one is identifying the resources required, which are your people, your technology, your material and consumable, and your financial aspect. And the next step is the time, their usage according to the project, which consider determine when you need them. You need to consider the entire project assigned to the project schedule. And the third step is your plan. Whether you're going to hire, or whether you're going to purchase, or whether you're requesting internally. So there are different way of looking at how you can get the resources. That's why you plan the acquisition. So the big picture at your right hand side shows what are the aspect or the elements that all fall under part of resourcing. So if you look at the skills, resourcing requires obviously skills. Skills become part of resourcing, and your tools and techniques will be utilized in resource management. But resourcing as a need, obviously your tools and techniques. So the project scope will also be given as an input to resourcing, so it can be defined. The project goal will definitely influence your resourcing, and it sets different goals and objectives for your project, and it defines the goals and objectives are defined back to the project scope. And if you look at the budget, it depends on how many resource you need. So it's obviously directly linked to your resource and how you're going to allocate from that. So that's pretty much your relationship or the interlink between resourcing and different elements of projects. Now, let's look at what resource estimation is. Resource estimation typically occurs before resource planning. You first estimate the resources needed for the project task, and then, based on these estimates, you plan how to allocate and manage those resources throughout your project. Accurate estimation is obviously a fundamental aspect of project resource planning. Once you have estimate, integrate them into a resource management plan that accounts for real world constraints like cost and resource availability. So if you look at the dependency, effective resources planning relies on how accurately you estimate the resources. And it also obviously integrates, after estimating your resources, the planning process refines this estimate into a detailed resource management plan, considering every aspect of the resource constraint, like your budget, your cost, your availability, your skills requirement, your time, etc. So that's how you do your resource estimation. And we use different techniques, or estimation approach, we call it. There are two main estimation approaches. The first one we call it deterministic, which is a single fixed value, assumes low uncertainty. Deterministic approaches uses a fixed value to estimate project time, cost, and resources. Mostly used where project manager has end-to-end visibility of the project. So the second approach is the probabilistic. So I think we have seen this in the previous class in the PERT assessment. Use this 3-point estimate. You're optimistic, pessimistic, and most likely. And this incorporates uncertainty into your planning. So if you don't know what are the resources and skills required, you can use this optimistic, pessimistic, most likely 3-point estimate to incorporate into your resource planning. So risks are determined using a probabilistic distribution, as you have already seen, a normal distribution or a beta distribution, and the confidence level. That's how you use probabilistic. So these two are the key estimation methods. Resource estimate method or typically occurs before resource planning. First, estimate needed for the project task. These based on these estimates, you plan how to allocate and manage these resources throughout the project. You look at the key deterministic approach. We focus on the first three, which you'll be, I think, you doing in your activities in the workshop. The parametric estimate uses productivity rates and factors. So if you look at examples such as like concrete placement calculation, where your rate and your factors get involved into the production of it. So that's how you use parametric estimation. So what is analogous estimation? This estimate uses data from similar project and adjusted to the context. So you look at previous projects or any other similar projects that you have done and try to get the data and adjust to the new context of your project. And the third one is about bottom-up estimate, which break down tasks using your WBS. I think you've seen that in week 2 of your PMGT 1865 course. So you look at the work breakdown structure and most accurately, but time-consuming aspect of this is bottom-up is mostly time-consuming work. And then the other few things we can go through, it's vendor bid analysis, usually based on supplier quotes. You go to the market, you ask for different quotes, and good for outsourced work. If you want to outsource the work to subcontractors or third party, which you can do this to bid vendor bid analysis. And there's the other aspect like workload, historical data. Historical data, it's uses past performance to identify if there's any condition that are similar, and then you incorporate into your project. And the easiest one or the final one, the expert's judgment, engages experts for complex and unfamiliar project. So these methods help answer the question. What question? What resources are required and how much? So choose a method based on available data, project complexity, and required ability. You don't have to use all the approaches we want to do. For the example, if parametric estimation is effective when you have productivity data, whereas bottom up is best for highly detailed planning. So whichever you want to, you depend on your context and your project, you decide which approach would be useful for it. On your right side, you look at the different methods used, and it gives you the description, and it also gives you some of the example of how best you can use it. That's for your info. Let's get into detail on parametric estimate. So what is parametric estimation in project resources management? It is a quantitative estimate that uses mathematical relationships and statistical models to estimate resource requirements based on known parameters, historical data, your productivity rates, something like that. In an abnormal or unforeseen circumstance, extra resource might be needed, which will obviously affect your budget and time and must be taken into consideration of it. So you look at the example given here, like if the standard time for installing a wind turbine costs or makes you like 40 person hours per turbine, and the efficiency factor for the regional site conditions, considering the weather and terrain is all it's good, so it's like 0.80% or 0.80 for a wind farm requiring installation of 25 turbines. So how would we calculate? So for 40 person hours, divide by 0.80 equals 50 person hours per turbine. So for 25 turbine, obviously you multiply by 50, which gives you 1250 person hours. So that's the total labor needed for your installation of 25 hours. So that's your parametric estimation. Let's get into the different techniques. And another example in parametric estimation is, assume we have 5 laborers to do the job. It will give you 1250 divided by 5 people. You're already hiring 5 people, you can do it in 250 hours. If you want to do it less, hire more people. If you want to take 10 laborers, it's going to be 125 hours. That's how you do your calculation. This explains that the duration of any activity is dependent on resource quantities. How much resource you have, you do it. That's about parametric estimation. So what is analogous estimation? It is a technique used to estimate the current work by referencing a similar completed project or activity and adjusting for known differences such as your size, your complexity, your location, your team skills, your conditions, etc. It is used early stages like scope, when scope is not fully defined, or when you have limited data but you have a close analog, and your portfolio environment with many similar projects. So that's what you do it. So what we think about an example is like a 50-kilometer fiber run took 1,000 labor hours in the UK. So you compare with Australia. So let's see, in Australia, work is typically 10% faster. So your new run is now become 60 kilometer. Assuming week scale, your beta becomes 0.9, which is on the base 1000 into 60 divided by 50 into zero point 0.9, which gives you 1770 times. So that's how you do your calculation of how many hours you want to take. So what are the strength and limits of analogous estimation? It is pretty much fast, inexpensive, and good for feasibility. And the accuracy and depends on how truly similar the analog is. So there is some limitation. It's easy to miss hidden differences. So the bottom up estimation. So this technique decomposes from your WBS, which is your work breakdown structure, and it estimates each lead task resources like your people, your equipment, materials, consumable cost, duration, and then aggregate upwards. So it's like your bottom up. So you aggregate all your different resources and aggregate up to see what the project resource will be. So when to use this? So detailed scope and when your designs are available, it's easy to do bottom-up estimation. So if you look at your WB breakdown structure, it gives you all the activities, up to that bottom level, whatever the person can be actionable. With that, you can have a detailed scope, you can design, and you should be able to get the value or the cost involved or the resources involved for each activities. And it's high accuracy needed when you have baseline contracting, governments, gates, and etc. Okay. So HR planning. What is HR planning? HR planning is the process of identifying, acquiring, developing, managing the human resources needed for a project. It ensures that the project has the right team, its members, and in the right roles and at the right time to meet the project objectives and goals. HR planning in projects is the systematic process of determining what roles, skills, and responsibilities are required, assigning them to team members, and planning how to manage and develop the release those resources throughout your project lifecycle. It basically includes your internal staff, your employees, and your contractors, your subcontractors, third-party vendors or suppliers, volunteers, etc., and all those people. Now, let's look at the components or the elements of HR management planning. So it basically involves the roles and responsibility. You need to document in RACI chart. We call it RACI chart. It's about responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed chart, which helps you prevent role confusions. And you need to look at the resource requirements. So what type and number of resources, like or what kind of skills they need, what are the expertise that the resources should have, such as like your is there an engineers required, is there a plumber required, electrician, designers, testers. If you look at IT, it is going to be developers required, how many database admin. So those kind of roles requirements or the resource requirements you need to take into consideration. And when will they be required also, and for how long? So those are the key aspect of resource requirements. And organization's structure or the team structure is also part of it. And you define the reporting relationship. Usually it will be with your project manager or your project directors, it will be reported to, but you need to define all those responsibilities and reporting structure. And you need to look at the staffing management plan, acquisition of how will people be hired or reassigned, the training requirements, what skills gaps needed to addressing, the rewards and recognition part of it, the release plan, and your staff transition plan. We have a lot of people moving across different stages or phases of projects. So how would you do the staff transition plan? What are the trainings required for them? So all those guidelines needs to be given, and you need to look at other aspects like performance management and conflicts management as well. So that becomes your part of or the element of your HR management planning. So now let's walk through the key stages of managing staff in a project. So usually it starts with your selection. You need to select whom you want. First, we select staff based on project resource requirements. This could be the internal employees or external hires. We can check their skills, their availabilities, what are the cost, are they contractors or the permanent employee, what are the costs we need to take into consideration and so on. And the second aspect is the secondment. Sometimes we second people or employees from another department. So if they have any specific skills or they have done something in the previous project which will be useful for this project, you need to bring them as a secondment for a temporary period. So this require clear agreements with their functional managers about the duration and reporting lines. And then the third aspect is on onboarding. What onboarding means is introducing them to the project objectives, the tools you're using in the project, the different processes you're using. So all needs to be considered. They need to understand the project structure and their roles and their reporting requirements. And the fourth aspect, what we look on to is the work allocation. We need to allocate work. Here, tools like responsibility assignment matrix will come into play, and also your RASI, your responsible accountable consultant, and informed chart will be useful, which help to clarify who is responsible for each task. The fifth aspect of the HR management plan would be your management. Throughout the project, we manage the team using process, tracking tools, status, meetings, and conflict resolution technique. The sixth aspect is your performance review. You obviously need to give performance review for your staff and how is it reviewed and what time frame is be done after the project based on key performance indicators like your timely delivery, quality, collaboration, and so on. And the final aspect is your rewards and recognition. We reward a good performance with bonus or recognition certificate, public appreciation. So all these has to be included in your HR management plan. So usually HR planning also includes creating sub-plans that provides structure and clarity. We have organizational breakdown structure, which is nothing but an hierarchical chart showing which part of organization is responsible for which work packages. It connects organizational units to the WBS. And the second aspect is the skills domain matrix. What is it, skills domain matrix? This matrix lists team members against skills. It helps them identify skill gaps, plan training, and hiring. The other aspect is roles and responsibility table. We will look at in the next slide. This table clearly define each role, its responsibility, and the reporting lines. And the finally is the RASI model or the RAM, which calls responsibility assignment matrix. This shows who is responsible, accountable, consultant, and informed for each activity. So let's see what organizational breakdown structure is. It is nothing but a hierarchical diagram that shows the organization of a project team and their reporting relationships. That's it. It links the organization department or units to the project work packages. Think like answering questions like who's responsible for which part of the project, which department owns the deliverables, and so on. Who's going to report to whom? So that's the aspect of the project structure. So why is it so important? Why is OBS, organizational breakdown structure, is so important? It assigns ownerships of deliverables, it prevents confusion in reporting line, and most importantly, it helps plan resources and responsibility clearly. Now, let's see what are the types of organization structure. So, what is organization structure? It is a formal a system of how task, roles, and responsibility are divided, grouped, and coordinated within an organization to achieve a specific goals or multiple goals. Common organization structure include your functional structure, where employee are grouped by specialty, divisional structure, which is organized by broad products or some deliverables based on market, based on geography, etc. And they have matrix type of structure, which combines functional and divisional element. And there is hierarchical, featuring many organization or management layers, where you have more bureaucracy. There is also flat with flat structure with few or no management level, and the most important one is network, where functions are outsourced to other companies, and the best structure depends on whatever company goals and industry and the culture you want to implement. That's how you select your organization structure. So an OBS usually has project manager at the top, Then they have major functional area, and finally specific roles. That's how OBS is. So a team or a project-based structure, what is it? It organizes employees into temporary cross-functional team for specific projects, whereas a team-based or team-based structure organizes employees into permanent or ongoing team that may work on a variety of tasks, some of which are projects. So what is network structure? It is a core group of specialists or a small management team coordinates with external partners and outsources. This offers flexibility but requires strong management of relationship. And the final one we have is the community-based structure, which refers to formal or informal framework used by community to organize and work together to address issues important to its members, often involving collective action, community participation, and kind of empowerment and those kind of aspects. Here you see different types of organization structure in the diagram. You see the first one shows how projects have been categorized into phases, or like marketing is a different project, and here you have a different projectified organizational structure. And based on the matrix, the third diagram shows you how the project gone across different organizational functional levels, and pick how people from different area can be used within the project. That's how matrix works. So let's look at the roles and responsibilities chart or the table. This table clearly defines the role, like example, your project manager, your developer, your tester, or your plumber, electrician, whoever, where, what roles they have, what's their name, what's their title, and what the role that they'll be playing, and what are the key responsibility of that role. So who reports to who. So those kind of things will be done. So why do we need this? It ensures everyone knows their job and reporting structure, which reduces conflicts and duplication of work. And finally, your RAM, which is your responsibility assignment matrix, it links people to work packages. It's a grid that matches tasks with team roles. The most popular version of RAM is your RASI chart. So RASI is basically your R stands for responsibility, which is who does the work. A stands for accountability, ultimately answerable for the task. Only one per person is done. And C is for consultant, provides input before the task is done, and inform is needs to update after the task is done. So this is important because in a project we want clear ownership. So multiple people can be responsible, but there's going to be only one person who's accountable for that task. With that, we conclude this session. So you did learn, or you did able to understand what the project resources are. We have gone into different methods of estimation, which is your deterministic and probabilistic. And then from there, we went on to learning about organization breakdown structure and the responsibility assignment matrix. And this you should be able to get a grasp of what resource management in project context. And I very much thank you for your time. And if you have any questions on resource management, please do not hesitate to contact me or Dr. Jin for any further clarifications. And if not, always have a wonderful day. I'll see you in the class. Thank you.